Freak. The freak meandered through a group of the undead. It was nearing nightfall, and he began to head back home. His pack was full of food, and he shouldn't have to leave his house again for another week or so, unless one of the zombie bastards punched its way in again. He didn't carry a gun anymore. He had figured out a while ago that they couldn't see him. It wasn't necessary for him to carry a gun, because if they did realize he was there, he would be dead long before he could pull out any kind of weapon. He did have to carry a weapon in the earlier days, back when he was normal, back before he became a freak. The people back then would try to steal food from him, attacking in delirious, starving rages. He killed quite a few people in self-defense, but he managed to detach himself from emotions. If he hadn't, he would be dead by now. Or insane. He was free of the burden of emotions now, and all he ever felt was contentment. He used to be afraid, he used to hate himself, but now there was no reason for either. He hated himself for not being normal. He used to be normal, but now he was just a freak in a sea of normalcy. He was only content, not feeling too strongly toward positive or negative emotions. In the early days, the infected, the zombies, the monsters, the ghouls, the beasts, were the minority. They were the freaks. They were the repulsive ones. Now it was him. He was the freak. He was one of the last of his kind. He hadn't seen another like him in some time now. When the virus first hit, it wasn't a big deal. Just a few hurriedly covered stories in the local news, stuff like that. It wasn't close to home at all. It was in little jungle villages in Africa. But it spread quickly. This sickness spread through the air, coughs, sneezes, bodily contact. It all spread the disease. The symptoms were subtle, and by the time you died and returned, it was too late, far too late. When they first started to attack, when he first became a freak, he was with a few others like him. Hunted, they all stowed themselves away in a child's treehouse. They had pulled the ladder up behind them, but the freaks knew where they were. They always knew. They were sitting, waiting. There were 7 freaks in the treehouse in total, cramped, moist, afraid. A few of them had guns and were firing wildly at the undead below. The freaks with guns were panicked, didn't know how to shoot, and didn't know to aim for the brain. They ran out of ammo and had only destroyed one. The reanimated shuffling men couldn't see. Their eyes were either closed, filmed over, or missing. They smelled, felt vibrations through the air, heard, or maybe had some unknown new sense. Nobody knew. It didn't matter. You were dead if you weren't immune. If you were immune, they couldn't sense you in whatever way they used. But if you touched them, they would feel you. They would feel your warmth. And they would take it away. One of the people in the treehouse wasn't immune. The rest were. The one who wasn't immune was already showing symptoms, and they all knew it. They planned to push him down soon, but he was too overactive right now. They had watched as he shot up heroin a few minutes ago. He was too violent and unpredictable now. His rifle was firing dry. He kept pulling back the bolt and firing anyway. Crazy bastard. The plan was to push him down when the opportunity arose, to distract the undead enough for the rest of them to get away. They didn't know how smart the undead were yet. About 20 minutes later, he finally began to crash. 3 of them exchanged a glance and shoved him down. He hit the ground with a sickening crunch, and the undead closest to him stood up, walked over, broke his neck, delivered a swift blow to his skull, and left him there. That was when the freaks realized how smart the undead were. Maybe not completely genius, but they knew. They had killed the addict and destroyed his brain to make sure he wouldn't come back. They needed the food, after all. They had heard 2 rifles firing at once, and knew from experience that a man could only fire one at a time. They knew there was at least one other up there, probably more. They surrounded the tree, waiting. The survivors were at a loss. I think I know what to do," a small, 40-ish balding man piped up. He was still wearing a button-up shirt and khaki pants, but he had ditched his dress shoes long ago. They only slowed him down. Everyone turned to him as one. "I think since they can't see us, we could maybe go down and try to sneak through. A few of us won't make it, but it's a better chance than we would have staying here." They all died except for the freak. Now he was alone and glad. If he saw another survivor, he would probably kill them in disgust. And he had done it before. A few months ago, he had found another survivor, dying of dehydration. He slit their throat. They couldn't be spared to live. And now this. He had just mounted a crest to see about 20 immune people hiking down the highway. He grimaced. The freak reached into his pocket. Do not suffer a monster to live. He pulled forth a well-made pipe bomb. He had made it over the course of a week. Why hurry when he had all the time in the world? He pulled a lighter out of his other pocket, then stuffed the pipe bomb into his belt, covering it with his "Welcome to Margaritaville" shirt. He held the lighter in his left hand, hidden, then began to tromp down the hill, holding his hands high in a gesture of peace. They were all overjoyed to meet another like them. There was a child with them, but the rest were either middle-aged or in their early 20s. He awaited an opportunity to use his weapon, but none arose until later that night. And he didn't even need the lighter. There was a fire in the middle of the camp, and they were all sleeping. They had rigged up an alarm system consisting of soda cans on a string. They all slept soundly. He stepped outside the limits of the camp and pitched the pipe bomb toward the fire. It detonated almost immediately. He ran from the blast of heat and smiled. He had stopped them from trying to overturn the world, how the world worked. They were reorganizing. That was not allowed. He had ended them all. He giggled and headed back home.